Hello everybody and welcome to the third video in our series of videos on ancient Rome. Today we are going to be looking at Roman soldiers, the structure of the Roman army, what life was like for them, and one of the most important wars they fought, the Punic Wars. As always, we begin with our learning outcomes. So by the end of this presentation, I would like you guys to know the weapons that a Roman soldier would carry with them into battle. Second, I would like you guys to know two siege weapons that the Roman used when attacking a city with defences. And third, I would like you guys to know what the words legion, decimation, and infantry mean. We are going to be looking at the Roman army from the years 264 BCE to 146 BCE, which coincides with when the three Punic Wars take place. The army is divided up into three divisions. The infantry is the first division, and infantry were the soldiers who fought on foot. The second division was the cavalry, and these were the men who fought on horses. These were usually from richer classes as they had to provide their own horses and special armour, which the poor people couldn't afford. The final part of the army was the navy. These were the soldiers who fought at sea and were in charge of the army's boats. The Roman army had at this time around 150,000 men in it. These men would have been from Rome and from the cities under Roman control in Italy. They were split into groups called legions. Each legion had between 5,000 and 6,000 men. These were then further divided into something called a cohort. So each legion was divided into 10 cohorts, so it would be around 500 to 600 men. Then these cohorts would be divided smaller again into centuries, which would contain between 80 and 100 men. And each century had a leader called a centurion. So, what were the weapons that the soldiers of Rome used? They usually had a short sword, which you can see here would have been at the side of their belt. They also would have had a dagger in their near their short sword there. They also here they would have had a javelin, as you can see in their right hand. They would also have a shield, a helmet, and some chest armor when they went into battle. They also had to carry around with them equipment for building a camp. The Romans, when they were attacking them, they would form this kind of protective formation. It would look a little bit like this, with their shields in front so that they could move forward while under fire. They would attack with their javelins, and when they got closer in hand-to-hand combat, they would pull out their short swords and use them. As you can see, they would have different defensive formations. So if they were being attacked by arrows, they would have the fronts and the tops of them covered, so that they could still move forward. When they were attacking a well-defended city, they would use these things called siege weapons to break down defenses. So when a city wouldn't surrender, it would be put under siege until either the city surrendered or the people who were attacking gave up, and they would usually give up due to a lack of supplies. The most feared weapon used was this weapon here called the ballista, which was an ancient missile weapon. So they could fire missiles at high speed from this thing. They also use siege towers. You can see here, you put that up to a wall so that they could get over the defensive walls. They also had a catapult called an onager. They had a semi-automatic crossbow device where they could just continue to feed in arrows while turning the crank, called a Scorpio. And of course, they would have used a battering ram as well to help them get through defenses. So life in the Roman army was quite difficult. Soldiers, they lived off wheat and barley and oats. They sometimes had to march up to 30 kilometers in 5 hours, and the discipline within the army was very strict. Soldiers were flogged using this horrific looking device here on the left for being disobedient, and if a mutiny was suspected, so if there was a rebellion within the army, even if it was only suspected, a process called decimation was used, where every 10th man was randomly executed as a warning. One of the most important wars the Roman soldiers fought was a series of wars called the Punic Wars. against a city called Carthage, which you can see is here. In 264 BCE, Carthage was the most powerful city in the Mediterranean. You can see there all the purple coloured places are under Carthaginian rule. Rome, as you can see, is here. At this point, it had just conquered all of Italy, which is in the red there, and they wanted to challenge Carthage's power. They waged a war over this island here, Sicily at the bottom, which was mainly under Carthaginian rule. So at this point, Rome had no navy. Rome then built a massive navy just to fight Carthage, and eventually they won the first war in 241 BCE, 17 years after it had begun. However, a young 9-year-old called Hannibal escaped after promising his father he would always be an enemy of Rome. And in 218 BCE, the Second Punic War broke out with Hannibal as leader of the Carthaginians. So at the time, as you can see here, the orange represents where Carthage were, and if you can follow that red arrow, that is the route that Hannibal took to attack Italy. As we said, at the time, Carthage controlled parts of Spain, so Hannibal attacked Italy by crossing over the Alps with his army and his war elephants. The Romans didn't believe it was possible to attack from here, so they were shocked when Hannibal arrived. Hannibal defeated the Romans in many battles. As you can see here marked on the map, in the Battle of Cannae, it's believed that his army killed 85,000 Roman soldiers in a single day. It was a bloody war. However, the Romans kept raising soldiers. Hannibal took over most of southern Italy, but he couldn't take Rome. He did, however, terrorize the Italians for 15 years, going around destroying cities, wandering around Italy, and would become something of a boogeyman for later Romans that they would point to as the time Hannibal roamed around the countryside, destroying the cities. However, the Romans wouldn't give in. Eventually, a Roman general called Scipio Africanus attacked Carthage. This forced Hannibal to leave Italy to go back to defend Carthage, and he was defeated in 202 BCE in a battle near Carthage. The Third Punic War then took place 50 years later. Carthage was beginning to become powerful once again, and Rome had decided that they had had enough of Carthage and were going to destroy the city. They reportedly sowed the city with salt so that nothing would grow there ever again, and they sold the 50,000 people who were left in the city who hadn't been killed or fled. They sold the 50,000 of those into slavery. So this was an important time in Roman history, as this was when Rome went from being just a power in Italy to beginning to create an overseas empire. And with the defeat of Carthage, they would become one of the most powerful nations within the Mediterranean. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. So by now you guys should know the weapons that a Roman soldier carried. So you guys should know his javelin, his short sword, and his dagger. Also that he would have had a shield and a helmet and some chest armor. Second, you guys should know 2 siege weapons that Romans used. So you could use the ballista, the battering ram, the onager, the scorpio, or the siege tower. Also, you guys should know what the words legions, decimation, and infantry mean. So a legion was a group of 5,000 to 6,000 Roman soldiers. Decimation was when there had been a suspected mutiny within the army, that one of every 10 would be taken out and killed. And finally, infantry were the foot soldiers of the Roman army. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys got something good from this video.